A heartbroken billionaire caught the nanny breastfeeding his baby in the middle of the night, and what he did next didn't just destroy her life, it almost killed his daughter. The grand penthouse overlooking the city should have been filled with laughter, with the soft coos of a happy baby, with warmth. Instead, it felt like a mausoleum. Every surface gleamed with expensive emptiness. Every room whispered with the ghost of the woman who would never return. And in the nursery, 4-month-old Clara's cries had grown dangerously weak. The formula sat untouched. The bottles refused. The rotating staff had tried everything, but nothing worked. The baby was fading, and her father, Justin Burnett, couldn't bear to look at her without seeing his dead wife's eyes staring back at him. If you've ever meant well for someone and they ended up making you regret it, please do me a favor, hit that like button and subscribe, because what happens next will absolutely wreck you. Down the hallway, Amanda Jones stood frozen outside the nursery door, her hand trembling on the handle. She was new. She was desperate. And she was drowning in a grief so profound that every one of Clara's cries felt like a knife twisting in her chest. 6 weeks ago, Amanda had buried her own baby. 6 weeks since she'd held that tiny, perfect weight against her heart and felt it go still. The doctors said there was nothing she could have done. But at 3 a.m., when she woke in a cold sweat with her arms empty and her body still producing milk for a child who would never drink it, logic didn't matter. She pushed open the door. Clara's face was flushed with fever, her little fists clenched, her breathing shallow. The night nurse had quit. The housekeeper, Brenda, had mysteriously left the wrong formula again. And Justin was locked in his office, drowning his grief in spreadsheets and silence, too broken to be a father. Amanda lifted the burning baby into her arms, and Clara's desperate, weakening cries pierced straight through her soul. She looked down at the dying infant. And she made a choice that would shatter everything. Amanda's hands shook as she pressed the bottle to Clara's lips for the 3rd time. The baby turned her head away with what little strength she had left, a thin whimper escaping her cracked lips. The fever was climbing. Amanda could feel it radiating through the expensive cotton onesi, through the monogrammed blanket, through every layer of wealth that couldn't save this child's life. Please, sweetheart. Please. Amanda's voice cracked. She tried again, tilting the bottle, letting a drop of formula touch Clara's tongue. The baby gagged, her tiny body convulsing, and spit it back up. The rejection was violent, primal, wrong. Amanda's heart hammered against her ribs. She'd been a nanny for 6 years before everything ended. She knew infant distress. She knew the difference between fussy and critical. And this, God help her, this was critical. Clara's breathing had gone shallow. Her skin had taken on a greyish tint beneath the flush of fever. Her eyes, when they fluttered open, were glassy and unfocused. The pediatrician wouldn't answer at this hour. The night nurse had walked out after Brenda's passive-aggressive comments about people who can't handle real work. And Justin, the baby's own father, was 3 doors down, locked behind mahogany and grief unreachable. Amanda looked down at the dying infant in her arms, and something ancient and unstoppable rose up inside her chest. Her body knew what Clara needed. Had known for 6 weeks, producing and producing with no mouth to feed, no reason to exist, just endless, cruel biology mocking her empty arms. She stumbled to the rocking chair and sank into it, Clara limp against her chest. Her hands moved to the buttons of her uniform with a strange, detached certainty. This was insane. This would get her fired. This could get her arrested. She wasn't this baby's mother. She had no right. But Clara was dying. Amanda's fingers trembled as she adjusted the baby against her skin. Clara's hot cheek pressed against her breast, and for one horrible, suspended moment, nothing happened. Then instinct took over. The baby's mouth found what it needed, and she latched on with a desperate, hungry urgency that made Amanda gasp. The relief was immediate. Clara's whimpers stopped. Her breathing steadied. The frantic tension in her tiny body began to ease as warmth and nourishment flowed into her. Amanda closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face, and held the billionaire's baby close. Saving a life. Crossing a line. Doing the only thing that mattered. She never heard the office door open down the hall. The silence was what pulled him from his trance. Justin had been staring at the same financial report for 20 minutes, the numbers bleeding together into meaningless shapes. His whiskey sat untouched. His phone lay face down on the desk, ignoring the 17 missed calls from his board members. None of it mattered. Nothing mattered except the crushing weight in his chest that made every breath feel like drowning. But something had changed. The crying had stopped. He lifted his head slowly, his exhausted mind struggling to process the absence of sound. Clara had been wailing for hours. He'd heard it through the walls, through the door, through the expensive soundproofing that was supposed to keep the penthouse peaceful. Her cries had become part of the white noise of his grief, another layer of punishment he deserved for not being able to save his wife. And now, nothing. Panic shot through him like electricity. He was on his feet before conscious thought caught up, his legs carrying him down the hallway in long, urgent strides. The nursery door was ajar, soft light spilling into the corridor. He pushed it open, his heart slamming against his ribs, preparing himself for the worst. He froze. Amanda sat in the rocking chair, her head tilted back against the cushion, eyes closed. Her uniform was disheveled, buttons undone, and against her bare chest, Clara lay in perfect, profound peace. The baby's tiny hand was curled against Amanda's skin, her rosebud mouth still latched on, drawing slow, sleepy pulls even in sleep. Her face had lost that terrible greyish tint. The flush of fever had faded to healthy pink. Her breathing was deep and even. She looked like she'd been saved. Justin couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't process what he was seeing. The intimacy of it hit him like a physical blow. The gentle rise and fall of Amanda's chest. The protective curve of her arms around his daughter. The expression on her face, peaceful and pained all at once, like she was holding something precious and forbidden. His wife had never breastfed Clara. Complications from the emergency C-section. Medications. Then the infection that killed her 3 weeks postpartum. Clara had been formula-fed from day one, bottle-fed by a rotation of strangers while he fell apart. But this primal, ancient act. This woman, this employee, nursing his child like she had every right. Something hot and violent twisted in Justin's chest. Grief. Betrayal. Rage at a ghost. He didn't know which. Didn't know where his dead wife ended and his dying daughter began. What the hell do you think you're doing? His voice shattered the sacred silence like breaking glass. Amanda's eyes flew open, her body jerking in the chair. Clara stirred against her chest, making a small sound of protest. Instinctively, Amanda's hand came up to shield the baby, to protect her from the fury radiating off the man in the doorway. Justin stood there like a monument to rage and grief, his expensive suit rumpled, his eyes wild. I asked you a question. She was dying. Amanda's voice came out hoarse, desperate. She fumbled with her uniform, trying to cover herself while keeping Clara stable. Mr. Burnett, please, she wouldn't take the bottle. Her fever was. So you thought you'd just. He couldn't even finish the sentence. His hands swept through the air, gesturing at her, at Clara, at the unthinkable intimacy he'd walked in on. You thought you had the right to do that to my daughter. I saved her life. Amanda stood now, Clara cradled against her shoulder, the baby's peaceful sleep already fragmenting under the tension. She was rejecting the formula. She was burning up. I tried everything, I tried. You're the help. His voice had gone cold now, deadly quiet. Worse than the shouting. You're nobody. You've been here 3 days, and you think you can just replace her mother. The words hit Amanda like a slap. That's not what My wife is dead. Justin's voice cracked on the word, his face contorting with pain he'd kept locked away for months. She's dead, and she never got to do that. She never got to feed her own daughter, and you, some stranger I hired to clean up spit up, you think you can just take that from her? Tears streamed down Amanda's face. I was trying to save Clara. That's all. I would never. Get out. The finality of it sucked the air from the room. Mr. Burnett, please. Get out of my house. He moved forward, hands outstretched for Clara. Amanda had no choice but to surrender the baby, her arms suddenly, horribly empty again. Justin held his daughter stiffly, like he didn't quite remember how. Clara began to cry, sensing the shift, reaching back toward Amanda's warmth. Justin pulled his checkbook from his jacket with one hand, scrawled something violent across it, and thrust it at Amanda. That's 3 months severance. More than generous. I want you gone in 20 minutes. She needs me. Amanda's voice broke completely. Please, just let me explain. If you're not out of this building in 20 minutes, I'm calling security. He turned his back on her tears, on the truth. We're done here. Amanda stood there, clutching the check, watching the man walk away with the baby who was already starting to scream. She'd saved a life and lost everything. Again. Clara screamed for 68 hours straight. Justin had counted every one of them, watching the clock like a condemned man watching the gallows. He'd hired 4 different nannies in 3 days. All of them quit. One lasted 40 minutes before walking out in tears, saying she couldn't watch a baby grieve itself to death. The bottles sat untouched. Every formula, every temperature, every position, every trick the pediatrician suggested, nothing worked. Clara would turn her head away, her tiny body rigid with refusal, and scream until her voice gave out into these horrible, rasping whimpers that were somehow worse than the crying. She'd lost weight. Her cheeks had hollowed. Her eyes had taken on that glassy, distant look that made Justin's blood run cold. On the 4th day, he rushed her to the hospital. Dr. Chen examined Clara with gentle efficiency while Justin paced the small room like a caged animal. The baby lay listless on the examination table, too weak now even to cry properly. Just these soft, broken sounds that shattered what was left of Justin's heart. Physically, there's no infection. No illness. Dr. Chen's voice was careful, measured. But her vitals are declining. Heart rate elevated from stress. Severe dehydration despite the 4 fluids. Mr. Burnett, when did this start? 4 days ago. Justin's voice was sandpaper. Right after I fired the nanny. Dr. Chen looked up sharply. The nanny she'd bonded with. She'd only been here 3 days, she couldn't have. 3 days is a lifetime to an infant. The doctor set down her stethoscope. Mr. Burnett, I've seen this before. What Clara is experiencing is called emotional regression. Babies form primary attachments very quickly, especially when they're vulnerable. If that attachment is suddenly severed, the trauma can manifest physically. Justin felt the floor tilt beneath him. You're saying she's grieving? Yes. Dr. Chen's expression was sympathetic but unflinching. She's grieving the loss of her primary caregiver. The person who fed her, held her, made her feel safe. To Clara, that person has simply vanished. She doesn't understand why. She just knows she's been abandoned. The word hit Justin like a bullet. Abandoned. Exactly what he'd accused Amanda of trying to do, replace the mother who'd abandoned Clara by dying. And he'd punished her for it. Fired her for saving his daughter's life. What do I do? His voice broke. Dr. Chen met his eyes. Bring back whoever she's bonded with. Quickly. Before this becomes irreversible. Justin stood there, surrounded by beeping machines and fluorescent lights, watching his daughter fade away. And all he could see was Amanda's face, tears streaming, begging him to listen. He'd destroyed them both. Justin returned to the penthouse like a man possessed, Dr. Chen's words echoing in his skull. Bring her back. Bring Amanda back. But he'd thrown her out with nothing but a check in his rage. He didn't even have her phone number. Her application was somewhere in his office, buried under the wreckage of his grief. He was halfway down the hallway when he heard the voices. Told you it would work. Brenda's voice, usually so carefully modulated, carried a sharp edge of satisfaction. 3 days and she was gone. Just like that. Justin stopped cold. But the baby's in the hospital now. The other voice belonged to Marie, one of the day maids. She sounded uncertain, frightened. Mrs. Brenda, maybe we should say something. Say what? That the help overstepped and got what she deserved. Brenda's laugh was cold. Mr. Burnett did the right thing. That girl had no business getting so close to Miss Clara. Acting like she was the mother. Using those bottles I prepared exactly as I was told. Something ice-cold slithered down Justin's spine. But you mixed the formula wrong on purpose, Marie whispered. You changed the nipples to the ones the baby hates. You said you were teaching her a lesson. I was protecting this family. Brenda's voice turned sharp. I've been with Mr. Burnett for 12 years. I knew his wife. I was there when Miss Clara was born. And some random girl off the street thinks she can just waltz in and take over? Making the baby depend on her? I don't think so. Justin stepped into the kitchen doorway. Both women froze. Marie went pale. Brenda's face flickered through shock, calculation, then settled into defiance. Mr. Burnett, I can explain. You sabotaged her. His voice was deadly quiet. You sabotaged Amanda. You set her up to fail. I was protecting your daughter from an outsider who... My daughter is dying. The roar tore out of him, shaking the expensive light fixtures. She's in the hospital right now because I fired the one person who could save her. The person you systematically destroyed because of your jealousy. Brenda's mask cracked. She had no right. Breastfeeding your baby like some kind of... I've served this family for over a decade, and she shows up and acts like she owns the place. She saved Clara's life. Justin's hands were shaking. And I punished her for it because I believed, because I thought. Because he'd been so consumed by his own grief that he'd been blind to the malice festering in his own home. You're fired. Pack your things and get out. Brenda's face went white. You can't. Get out of my house before I have you arrested. He turned away from her, his mind already racing. He had to find Amanda. Before it was too late. Justin tore through Amanda's application with shaking hands. The address listed was a small apartment in the East District. He had his driver there in 20 minutes, his heart hammering the entire way. The landlord answered on the third knock, looking annoyed until he saw the desperation on Justin's face. Amanda Jones. Yeah, she lived here. Past tense. The man shrugged. Got evicted 2 days ago. Couldn't make rent. Left her stuff on the curb. Justin felt the ground shift beneath him. 2 days. She'd been homeless for 2 days while he'd been too consumed with his own righteous anger to see the truth. Where did she go? How should I know? Not my problem once they're out. Justin spent the next 6 hours deploying every resource his billions could buy. Private investigators. Security firms. People who specialized in finding the unfindable. He showed Amanda's photo from her application to homeless shelter workers, soup kitchen volunteers, anyone who might have seen her. Nothing. It was almost midnight when one of his investigators called. Mr. Burnett, I think we found her. St. Vincent's Relief Shelter on the south side. The night manager remembers a young woman matching the description. Said she looked sick. Real sick. Justin was in the car before the man finished the sentence. The south side was a world away from his penthouse. Broken streetlights. Graffiti-tagged buildings. The shelter was a converted warehouse with peeling paint and bars on the windows. Inside, it smelled like industrial cleaner and desperation. The night manager, a tired woman with kind eyes, led him through rows of cots to a corner near the back. She showed up 3 nights ago. Wouldn't talk much. Started running a fever yesterday. We tried to get her to the ER, but she refused. Said she didn't have insurance. And there she was. Amanda lay curled on a thin mattress, covered by a donated blanket that had seen better decades. Her face was flushed with fever, her hair stuck to her forehead with sweat. Even in sleep, she looked broken. Devastated. Her hand clutched that locket she always wore, pressed against her chest like a lifeline. Justin dropped to his knees beside the cot, his expensive suit hitting the concrete floor. This was what he'd done. Thrown out a grieving woman who'd saved his daughter's life. left her destitute and sick while he sat in his tower of glass and steel, drowning in self-righteous grief. Amanda. His voice cracked. He reached out, touching her shoulder gently. Amanda, please. Wake up. Her eyes fluttered open, glassy and unfocused. When she recognized him, fear flickered across her face. Please don't, she whispered. I have nothing left for you to take. Justin's voice came out broken, raw. I'm not here to take anything. I'm here to beg. Amanda tried to push herself up, but her arms trembled with weakness. The fever had clearly taken hold, her body finally surrendering to the stress and grief she'd been carrying for weeks. Clara is dying. The words tore out of him. She's in the hospital. The doctors say she's experiencing emotional regression. She won't eat, won't sleep. She's grieving you, Amanda. And I. God help me, I did this. I fired you for saving her life. Tears streamed down his face now, unchecked, unashamed. Justin Burnett, billionaire CEO, crying on his knees in a homeless shelter. I found out the truth. Brenda sabotaged you. The formula, the bottles, all of it. She admitted it. And I was too blind, too angry, too buried in my own grief to see what was right in front of me. His hands shook. You saved my daughter's life, and I threw you away like garbage. I will never forgive myself for that. Never. Amanda stared at him, tears sliding down her own feverish cheeks. She's really dying. The doctors say if she doesn't reconnect with you soon, they don't know if. He couldn't finish. Please. I know I have no right to ask you for anything. I know what I did is unforgivable. But Clara needs you. She's 4 months old and she's already lost her mother. Please don't let her lose you too. Amanda closed her eyes, her whole body trembling. When she opened them again, her voice was steel wrapped in heartbreak. I'm not doing this for you. Only for her. I know. I know. The car ride to the hospital was silent except for Amanda's labored breathing. Justin had wrapped her in his coat, but she still shivered. He'd called ahead. Had a private room prepared. Had Dr. Chen waiting. When they entered Clara's room, the baby was grey. Listless. The monitors beeped out her declining vitals in mechanical judgment. Amanda moved to the bedside, her fever-bright eyes filling with fresh tears. She reached down and lifted Clara from the hospital crib, and the baby's eyes fluttered open. For one suspended heartbeat, nothing happened. Then Clara's tiny hand reached up, grasping at Amanda's shirt, and a sound came from her throat. Not a cry. Something else. Recognition. Relief. Home. Amanda sank into the chair, adjusted her clothing with shaking hands, and brought Clara to her chest. The baby latched on like she'd been drowning and finally found air. Within minutes, Clara's breathing steadied. Her color began to return. The monitors stopped their frantic beeping and settled into a normal rhythm. Dr. Chen stood in the doorway, nodding slowly. That's the miracle I was hoping for. Justin watched through his tears as the two broken souls held each other and began, finally, to heal. The press conference was scheduled for 2 days later, once Clara had been discharged and Amanda's fever had finally broken. Justin's publicist had begged him to reconsider, to let the lawyers craft a sanitized statement, to protect his image and the company's stock price. He'd fired her on the spot. Now he stood at a podium in the grand conference room of Burnett Industries, facing a sea of cameras and reporters who'd been circling for days, hungry for the story of the billionaire's hospitalized baby and the mysteriously vanished nanny. The rumors had already started. Tabloids speculated everything from kidnapping to affairs to negligence. Justin was about to burn it all down. Amanda sat in the front row, Clara sleeping peacefully in her arms. She'd tried to refuse, said she didn't need vindication, didn't want the spotlight. But Justin had insisted. She deserved the world to know the truth. He gripped the edges of the podium, his knuckles white. 2 weeks ago, I made the worst mistake of my life. His voice rang out clear and unwavering. I fired Amanda Jones, the woman sitting before you, after she saved my daughter's life. The room erupted in murmurs. Camera flashes exploded like starbursts. My daughter Clara was critically ill, rejecting formula, burning with fever. The medical staff I'd hired had failed her. I had failed her, locked in my office, drowning in grief over my late wife. And Amanda, a woman I'd employed for only 3 days, made the choice to breastfeed my daughter when nothing else would save her. The murmurs grew louder. Justin pressed on. I walked in on this act of mercy, and I responded with cruelty. I was consumed by my own pain, my own blindness, my own pride. I accused her of overstepping, of trying to replace my daughter's mother. I fired her without severance, without references, without a second thought. His voice cracked, but he didn't stop. What I didn't know was that my trusted housekeeper had been sabotaging Amanda's care out of jealousy. That the formula failures, the bottle problems, all of it was deliberate malice. And I was too arrogant to see it. He looked directly at Amanda now, his eyes filled with tears. Because of my actions, Amanda became homeless. She fell ill. And my daughter nearly died from the grief of losing her. The doctors call it emotional regression. I call it the consequence of a father who was too broken to see the angel who'd been sent to save his family. Justin stepped away from the podium and walked to Amanda. In front of every camera, every reporter, every witness, he dropped to one knee. Amanda Jones is a hero. And I was the villain in her story. I'm here to make that right. The room fell into stunned silence as the billionaire bowed his head before the nanny who'd saved everything he had left to love. 3 weeks later, Amanda stood in Clara's nursery, watching the evening light paint gold across the walls. The room had changed. Justin had asked her opinion on everything, the colors, the furniture, the mobile spinning gently above the crib. It didn't feel like a museum anymore. It felt like a home. Clara cooed softly in her arms, healthy and thriving, her chubby fingers playing with Amanda's locket. She loves that thing, Justin's voice came from the doorway. Amanda turned, her heart doing that strange flutter it had started doing whenever he appeared. He'd changed too. The haunted look had faded from his eyes. He smiled now. Actually smiled. It was my son's. The words came easier now. She'd told him everything one night when Clara wouldn't settle. About the pregnancy. The perfect, tiny boy who'd lived for only 3 hours. The grief that had nearly destroyed her. I think she knows somehow. That it's important. Justin crossed the room slowly, like he was afraid of shattering something precious. Amanda, I need to talk to you about something. Her stomach tightened. If this is about the contract extension, you really don't have to. It's not about the contract. He was standing close now, close enough that she could see the nervousness in his expression. Actually, I want to tear up the contract entirely. Fear shot through her. Justin, if this is about what happened, I promise I'll never. I want to tear it up because I don't want to be your employer anymore. He took her hand, the one not holding Clara. These past 3 weeks, watching you with my daughter, watching you bring life back into this place. Amanda, you didn't just save Clara. You saved me. You pulled me out of a grief so deep I thought I'd drown in it. Tears pricked her eyes. Justin. I know it's fast. I know we've been through hell. I know you're still healing from your own loss. His thumb traced gentle circles on her palm. But somewhere between the hospital and here, between watching you rock my daughter to sleep and hearing you laugh for the first time, I fell in love with you. Amanda's breath caught. I'm not asking you to be Clara's nanny. I'm asking you to be her mother. My wife. My family. His voice broke with emotion. I'm asking you to let us heal together. To build something new from all this broken grief. You don't have to answer now. You don't have to answer ever if you're not ready. But I needed you to know. Amanda looked down at Clara, who gazed up at both of them with trusting eyes. Then she looked back at Justin, this man who'd shattered her and then pieced her back together with his own broken hands. Ask me properly, she whispered. Justin's eyes widened. Then he smiled, and it transformed his entire face. He dropped to one knee right there in the nursery. Amanda Jones, will you marry me? She didn't hesitate. Yes. 6 months later, Amanda woke to sunlight streaming through curtains she'd chosen herself and the sound of her husband singing off-key in the nursery down the hall. Her husband. The word still felt surreal, precious, like something she had to hold gently or it might disappear. But the ring on her finger was real. The warmth beside her in bed each night was real. This life, stitched together from grief and mercy, was real. She padded down the hallway in bare feet, following Justin's terrible rendition of a lullaby. The penthouse had transformed over the months. Photographs lined the walls now, not just of Justin's late wife, honored and remembered, but new ones. Amanda and Clara at the park. Justin making silly faces at the camera. The three of them together, a family built from broken pieces. She paused in the nursery doorway, her heart swelling at the sight. Justin stood at the changing table, Clara kicking her pudgy legs while he struggled with a diaper. No, no, sweetheart, that's not, okay, well, that's on my shirt now. That's fine. Daddy needed to change anyway. You're supposed to fasten it quickly, Amanda said, laughing. Justin looked up, his face lighting up the way it always did when he saw her. I'm learning. She's a surprisingly effective teacher through humiliation. Amanda crossed to them, wrapping her arms around Justin from behind, resting her chin on his shoulder. Clara babbled happily, reaching for her mother, the word that had stopped making Amanda's chest ache with loss and started making it bloom with hope. I have something to tell you, Amanda whispered. Justin turned in her arms, his expression shifting to concern. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. She took his hand and placed it on her stomach, watching as understanding dawned across his face. I'm 8 weeks along. For a moment, he couldn't speak. His eyes filled with tears, his hand trembling against her. You're pregnant. We're having a baby. Justin pulled her close, Clara squealing between them, and buried his face in Amanda's hair. She felt his shoulders shake, felt the dampness of his tears against her neck. I thought I'd lost everything, he whispered. I thought grief was all I had left. Me too. They stood there, the three of them soon to be 4, wrapped in morning light and second chances. The penthouse didn't echo with ghosts anymore. It rang with laughter, with Clara's babbling, with the sound of healing taking root. Outside, the city stretched vast and indifferent. But in this room, in this moment, 2 broken people had found something neither thought possible again. They'd found home. Not in walls or wealth or the absence of pain, but in each other. In the fierce, fragile choice to love again after loss. In the understanding that grief and joy could exist together, that honoring the past didn't mean abandoning the future. Amanda looked up at Justin, at Clara reaching for both of them with chubby hands, and felt something settle deep in her soul. This was where she belonged. This was family. This was everything. If this story touched your heart, I need you to do something for me right now. Hit that like button. Seriously, it helps more than you know. Subscribe and turn on notifications because I'm bringing you more stories that will wreck you in the best way possible. Drop a comment and tell me, do you believe Justin deserved a second chance? Should Amanda have forgiven him so quickly? I want to hear your thoughts. And if you know someone who needs to hear a story about second chances and healing after loss, share this with them. Sometimes we all need to be reminded that broken things can be made beautiful again. I'll see you in the next one, and trust me, you won't want to miss it.